We're on.
Okay. Call the meeting to order at 7:10. And the first thing on our agenda is to approve the agenda, which we can't do because we don't have a quorum yet, so we'll proceed with the workshop because we do have guests.
We have a quorum.
Diane's here.
Does Diane make a quorum?
Oh.
Wow.
2, 3, 4,
Somebody coming in there?
Yes.
5. Yep.
Well, let me amend that in only moments.
This makes entertaining viewing.
There are no
What's
commercial
gonna happen
breaks.
next?
Who's gonna come in?
That was perfect. You're our quorum.
Ethan, go sit at the desk over there. Do my work. Sorry.
That's all right. No, we're delighted to see you.
Yes, more than you can imagine.
Okay, now we have a quorum. This is good.
I'm sorry, but he had an appointment till 7, so.
No, I explained that he was running a couple of minutes late, but we're trying to do this count of the people who haven't shown up at all. But that's okay. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Or amend it, if you wish. We have a,
Oh, good, good.
Got a
Now I get it,
second,
you know this too.
I'm sorry.
Got a motion, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you very much. And all those in favor? All right, there we go. All right, first item on our agenda is a workshop for property owners with split lots. Well, actually, we should do introductions first. I'm Donovan Kinderen, and I chair this lovely get-together that we have on a regular basis with the Comp Plan Review Committee.
I'm Diane Robbins.
I'm Sean Hayes.
I'm Tad Redway, the planner.
I'm Dorothy Redwart.
I'm John Bell.
I'm Robert Drew. This is my chauffeur.
Very good. Okay, so our first item is a workshop with property owners with split lots along Limerick Road, south of the Eastern Trail. And let me give you a little background for why we're doing what we're doing. What we have been doing for the past couple of months is doing a general review of all of the residential districts. We had last year handled the business districts in town and mixed-use districts. And one of the problems that we perceived with the residential districts was that most of the property district lines were just straight lines. And if they split properties in half, so be it. And we thought perhaps there was a better way
Comes
to
into a
do.
problem when you start developing.
Well, yes, we thought there was a better way to do that. So one of the things that we're recommending is that the districts be redrawn to follow property lines. Another concern that we had is that because of this block is R1, for example, nature of the way the districting was done last time, we have quite a few properties which are fairly large tracts of land, 10 acres and more, which are in 1 acre zones. And we thought that was a little bit of a problem because perhaps some people would like to do more with that land than they were allowed to. They had enough land to do something, but they're stuck in a 1 acre zone. So we're trying to address both of those problems as best we can. This particular area south of the Eastern Trail along Limerick Road it's rather unique in terms of how those lines ended up because we have the R1 zone, which is the yellow, and the line that separates it from R4, and that's a drastic change because we're looking at a 1 acre zone next to a 3 acre zone. And a good number of those properties, I believe there were 7 large properties, 6 large properties which are split. So rather than us making a decision and saying, well, gee, it looks like we should do this or that, we thought it would be appropriate to get the property owners in and see what your preferences are. What we would like to do is carve out along boundary lines as opposed to just follow that straight line that cuts the properties in half.
I don't know just what you wanted. I understand what you're trying to do on the boundary line deal. Problem is, your tax map is so screwed up, the boundary lines in your tax map, lots of times are not the boundary lines in the woods.
Can't do anything about that.
So if you start going by the boundary lines that you're using on your tax map, that's not gonna be anywhere near correct. I
Well-
have that problem with my property.
Okay, my guess would be that if push comes to shove, if you have a piece of property and your deed shows the boundaries at a particular place, that's where the boundary is,
Right.
even if the tax map is off
I know
by.
the tax map is wrong, and I'm running into that problem right now. I'm trying to sell this piece of land because I own a lot more land than you think I do.
Yeah, that happened to me with mine. I had to go in and have it.
I haven't said anything in the past because, and the mother never said anything in the past. My father never said anything in the past. Because somebody else is paying our taxes, I don't get it.
All right, good approach.
Well, now we know.
One of the people that's doing it thinks he's got it in his head from years ago that after 20 years he owns it. I got news for him. He don't.
Again, not something this committee
He's
can
not even
address.
using it in the woods. Actually, the boundary line between that person and me in the woods is perfectly okay. I have no problem with it, he has no problem with it, but don't match up the maps.
Okay. If your determination was that you wanted that piece of property all in R1 or all in R4, wherever the legal boundary is, which I assume would be according to his deed,
According to his deed.
not the tax
Right,
maps,
tax maps are.
then that would apply to, whatever you decide, that applies to your property and those boundaries. What we are concerned with,
Normally, in the past, whenever we had a problem, we just go vote the ordinance out and we put in whatever we wanted, and then it was grandfathered, and that's how the sawmill got there. You had an ordinance up here that my father bought a sawmill and was gonna move it over to Route 1 in 1977, and all of a sudden we discovered he had some stupid ordinance that said that we had to go get permission to put sawmill in. So a petition got drawn up, and people went to a town meeting, a special town meeting, I think it was about 15 of us, and we voted that ordinance right out. 3 months later, I ran into somebody in the store, and they said, "Hey, you didn't even go to the meeting last night. What are you talking about?" I said, "We voted that ordinance back in." I said, "Okay. Sawmill's there, we've been sawing logs. Bye. We're grandmothers." I can play a game.
okay,
I think part of our goal is to try to not play games.
Right.
I don't like
Or not to
playing
make
games, but I
people
can
have
play
to do
games.
that.
No.
We want to try to make it easier for people and to try to get their input in what's
So
happening.
what's the big gist of this thing? To try and get some more tax money in the town instead of
No.
houses? Or?
no, let me back up a little bit. First of all, what this committee is, we're the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee. A lot of what you're talking about in terms of ordinance is planning board.
Yeah, okay.
So we're not responsible for what they do. However, what this committee does is kind of lay the groundwork for what they might do.
Okay.
And as I said, our whole impetus was to give some property owners relief.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, if you've got a 100-acre lot sitting in the middle of a 1-acre zone, and you want to do, animal husbandry on a large scale, right now you can't, even though you have the property to do it. And we thought that perhaps that should be changed so that you could. So that's our goal, is to make,
So, okay.
give property owners some relief. So I guess even though it may not be obvious on the face of it because of past history, we're actually on your side.
Well, the way I've always looked at it, if you want to do something with my land, let's buy it. They can do what the hell you want, I don't care.
There's no argument for me personally on that. However,
So one of these pieces of property that I own in town, that I just bought off my mother, my grandfather bought before I was born.
well, and that's the case with a lot of pieces in
We
town.
never built anything on it.
Been in the
We
family
always
for
cut
ages.
firewood off and cut logs off it.
Yeah.
And, in fact, I got a log that's going in next week or the week after and cut some more of it. We cut some in August, but we couldn't finish it, it was too wet. That week it rained 6 inches in August, we was trying to cut my wood log,
Oh, no.
right on the bank of the Kennebunk River. That didn't work.
No.
So we pulled out of there, we're waiting till it freezes up, well, this week I guess it's gonna freeze. Finally, 2 weeks ago, you couldn't get in there.
No.
I called her one day, I was down there with my little four-wheel drive tractor, I called her up and I said, I need some help.
I said, what can I do?
I had the front end of my tractor about 2 feet lower than the back end.
That's not good.
I put the bucket down and it wouldn't pick the front end up. I didn't realize I had the frame of it stuck underneath the stump. After I got it out underneath the stump, it wasn't a problem, to get out.
On our map up there, could you tell me which piece of property is yours?
This one's mine,
Yeah.
Why don't you give them a map here?
All right.
go down the end of Pinecrest Acres.
That works too.
You get to the end of Pinecrest Acres, I own everything but the river. 2 lots. Where's Pinecrest Acres?
There's the piece of trail.
Trail. And you don't get Pinecrest Acres.
That's fancy.
All right. Pinecrest Acres must be in here. That's mine, and this is
Okay.
the one I just bought from my mother. But the boundary line actually goes up to the, I don't know,
I believe he's on the, near the
this,
bottom.
R4?
It's on the bottom of it.
between the.
This part right here?
It's on the, yeah,
What
it's
was
on
this
that
one?
very tip of it.
74, December 74, the boundary line. We were supposed to wait until it's, but now they bought the mother and goes to spring, so they do.
All right, so basically yours is all in R4 anyway. Except this little piece.
Here.
Yeah, yeah, it goes, right,
Okay.
yeah,
There.
yeah, that must be,
There.
this is a road.
Kimball.
Yeah.
And then,
That's fine.
That is actually a road.
Yeah. Yeah, that's your right of way thing.
Yeah.
This is, what they get, the old BD.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how. So you got the zoning lines, the yellow and pink zoning lines going right through the middle of, that house.
Yeah, well, that's why we wanted to work on that.
That's
Give or
why
take
we
a few
wanted to.
inches.
Trying to think of the guy's name, Kimball. Wayne Kimball's house,
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back.
right through the middle of his house.
Guess what?
And
He's in the DB two.
so,
Well, not
Our
fire-
one,
not
our
fire-
one, one R1 person is actually the proposed new DB2.
He's also got this, which is all R4.
Yeah. This is, that's this one right here, that's the one we're talking about right
Yep.
there. That's DB2, as you can see in our new map.
Yep.
The whole thing is DB2, we put that all the way out. Didn't take it all the way to R4. But, so this front piece right here. Get up a little bit more.
Well,
Oh, that's not, that was not going.
I want to zoom back over.
Actually, squirrels in there.
I want that. I really do.
not to change the subject, but it's,
Steve,
people
just
still
didn't
looking
want
for
that
a
number.
place to put the town hall.
I'm not.
Town hall committee is though.
Yeah, town hall committee.
My
That's your
land's for
property
sale.
right there, right?
What's
Mr.
that?
Drew?
My land's for sale.
This is your property right here, right, Mr. Drew? That's the new one? Kimball's right, ah, jeez, it's so big.
The yellow.
Yes. I think that's the big piece right there.
Yes, it is.
I've got two.
Yeah, and the one behind
one
it.
behind you.
Yeah, I got the other, I go all the way to the river,
Yeah.
and the other one.
Yeah, okay, so that's the one you just bought?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my grandfather bought that 4 hours born, what, 46, 45 or 46.
Okay.
I've always played on it, hunted on it, trapped on it, shot on it. Done about everything down there.
I'll be glad to know it's gonna be proposed to be a business district.
Business district.
Yeah.
Well, mixed use. Mixed. Right? Oh, no, I'm sorry, DB2. I
DB2.
lost my mind there.
So if it's a business district,
Business district. It's got all kinds of potential.
I don't understand putting a business district down in there. So, I mean, you couldn't put a store down there to sell anything, nobody finds you.
If it was part of a bigger project, it would.
Walmart ain't looking for anything right now, I don't think.
No, I don't think we were thinking Walmart.
So what's that mean? I can't build houses on it? I can't build houses
No,
on
you
it?
can build houses on it.
Build houses on it, okay.
There's houses allowed in that. Where we had that, isn't that a percentage?
Yep.
I was planning on putting one now. Well, you're taxing me enough on it, so I can't afford to grow trees on it. Paying $1,000 a year for taxes on that piece of land. It's not gonna happen. Not while I own it. It's gonna be for sale for somebody, and I imagine they'll be building houses if I don't.
Well, the good thing is that it has a lot more potential. Assuming this goes through,
Yeah.
town meeting, it has a lot more potential and it has higher value for you to sell, because it's a different
That's
district. Unless you don't like that.
All right. I like money just like everybody else.
I figure you probably would like that.
If I wasn't in a wheelchair, I'd been building a house on it before that. Of course, I'd have been given Hancock lumber to run for their money on Route 1 and all that. You almost had Hancock in a run, but people don't know it. Hancock almost came to a run. Back in 85,
What happened?
found it in Sullivan.
Oh, that's a good reason.
I was driving in the mill one day, and the Hancock lumber pickup was going out. I went to the office, and I said, "What the hell's going on there?" He said, "Oh," I was laughing at me, he says, "You want to buy the place?" I said, "What'd you tell him?" He said, "Told me he didn't want to sell." I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "He offered me $150,000 for it." He said, told me I could take everything that was belonged to me, except the land, and that's all he wanted. He didn't want the lumber, he didn't want the buildings, he didn't want the equipment, nothing. That was when they first moved to Kennebunk, when they first took over Gendro Lumber, and they didn't have enough room where they was at, before they went to where they're at now. That's why they bought Andrews Enterprises, because they wanted more land. They would have bought the fathers if he had sold them. I said, "You don't want to sell?" And he said, "Well, I aren't selling for that price." Well, I had my grain store there at the time, I didn't want him to sell. Like a dummy, I should have gone to I think the Hancock guy's first name. I should have gone to him and made a deal with him, and then come back and see what I could buy it off the father.
That's right.
I knew I could buy it off the father for $300,000. I knew that. He told me he'd sell it for double that. So I should have tried to get my old man down to $250, and then sold the Hancock for $4. I'd made some money, but I wasn't smart enough to do that.
Thanksgiving dinner that year would have been pretty interesting.
I mean, you get things like that happen, and I was driving back from a mall in Portland one day, years ago. I was working for Newman Homes at the time, working with your father, Newman Homes. And I was driving I went into the mall to get a hunting coat. And I was going back over to my father's to see him about something before I went back home to Springfield. I lived in Springfield at the time. Over in Saco, this guy pulls into a driveway with a little trailer behind his pickup truck and a little small bulldozer, a bucket loader, called a loader on it, a little teeny one. And my father just bought one a month before that for $1,500. And this guy slapped a sign right on it and said, "For sale," as soon as he got out of the truck. I turn around, I come back. I said, "What do you want for it?" He said, "Well, I like it between 2 and 3 out of it." Well, I figured out later on, I realized he wanted 2 to 300. I thought 2 to 3,000, that's what it was worth. Didn't buy it.
I think we can all say
Zeros
zeros
are
are always
always
important.
You gotta,
Zeros are always
you know,
important.
sometimes people talk, well, I'm trying to get 2 or 3 out of it, or 5 or 6 or something. Are they talking hundreds of thousands, Sometimes you don't know.
Apparently, it's always a good idea to ask.
No, usually, well, I feel kind of stupid sometimes, so now what I do to them, I say, "Well, how many thousand you say you want for this, or how many hundred?" If it's between hundreds or thousands, I don't know which it is, I ask them how many hundreds they want. Then I usually can find out, but sometimes they still don't do it.
Start from the hundreds first.
That's what it's
Yeah, I
about.
just try to figure out.
Okay, so,
So it's gonna be- you're trying to make it more valuable for me.
yes.
Well, what if I wanted to just raise pigs then?
Well, then you want this district,
That would get my support.
then you want the R4.
Then I want to have 4.
Then you want
You
an
missed
R4.
our whole discussion.
What if I build a house on Island 1 and then I want to raise a pig?
That's not a problem.
Not a problem?
One pig? No, probably not. It all depends on what we're gonna do.
They never know
with
what's
the
there,
animal
it's cold
units.
anyway. I got 2 right now, and they don't even know it.
Right, animal units. Oh, well, you can do 1 pig in R1.
Yep.
So, shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
I guess you're not trying to hurt me.
No, we're really not, actually. It's
Doesn't
quite
appear-
the opposite.
Doesn't appear to be.
Quite the opposite.
This is the way it is now. And we're gonna turn, right now, the plan is to turn this section blue.
Which
Okay,
means
so you got
that
this
it's a
section here.
downtown business district too.
Yeah. I mean.
So
this is-
you actually have 2 options. You can probably want to try to decide if you want to be in DB2 district, or the R4, or the R1.
I mean, the only thing that piece of land down there is good for is either build houses on it, or you could put industry on it, but you can't, you can't put a sales store on it. Because you're out of the way. Right. But you could do like an industrial park if you guys would allow that,
That's what's in the DB2 district.
Okay.
That's actually a higher density
Because,
district.
you can stick an industrial park any place as far as, it doesn't have to be right on the highway. You could be off the sidewalk a mile or something, and the trucks can still find it with lose and pick up or
Yeah,
whatever. Because the neighbors probably wouldn't like it if I put a pallet factory down there.
probably not.
Well, that's the general plan for the DB2 district, so I mean, if your intent is to sell that land, probably would be worth more as part of the DB2 rather than a rural district.
We're not even sure what we're gonna do with the R4 yet.
Maybe I'll just keep it and live on it. Can't make any money doing that.
Well, the other piece would logically stay in R4, because that's not split.
Right.
And that section is probably gonna be R4 anyway. Between the river and the soils. But,
Because we know Bert's land, you're next to Bert, next door,
Yeah.
right? Sorry, you're next to Bert. Bert's got that's conservation land down there, right?
Bert's got his in tree growth, so you can't build it on that.
yeah.
Everybody, a lot of these people, I don't know if Bert's one of them or not, I don't know. But I run into people before that say, well, I got a piece of land I want to sell, and it's in tree growth. Once I found out it was in tree growth, I said, well, now what do you want me to do with it? I said, well, go build a house on it, in Clean Lane.
Well, you can
do
still,
it.
you can still
I
do
went
that.
to enough seminars in the 70s and found out enough about the tree growth tax law to know that until the government lets you out of it. They do occasionally have a spell when they'll let you out.
No, you can get out at any time,
Yes,
however,
you
you
can.
have to pay
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
5 years worth of back taxes.
Yeah, you gotta pay the back taxes, the interest on it, and penalties.
Yes.
And, yeah, when you get done doing that, your land ain't worth nothing, so you might as well forget it. I went to enough seminars on that. You got to pay all the back taxes, all the interest, all the back taxes you didn't pay with interest, plus a 35% penalty.
No, 35% penalty, not if you've had it for more than 5 years.
You know. I learned enough about it, no, I didn't want to mind it.
Well, it's not necessarily an economically feasible thing to do for everyone under every
I mean,
circumstance.
trees are only, and then, putting in tree growth, it's, the only reason why the taxes are cheaper right now is because this probably won't change, this will probably stay the same, but being in tree growth is based on what the trees grow, is what you pay for taxes. Now, if it happens to get so that what the trees grow is worth more money than beachfront, then you're gonna be paying more tax on the beachfront. It's not based on being less than beachfront, it's just based on what trees can grow. It's what they're worth. If all of a sudden trees start being worth $1,000 a piece when they're 6 inches diameter, you got a lot of trees, they're gonna be worth a lot of money.
Not anymore.
No, that's not how it is these days.
You know, they changed it.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether it changed
It's
or
based on
not.
open land. It's
It-
based on open land.
Right. It's,
That's
it,
all it is.
Maybe they've changed it from what they first started out with.
that could very well be, I don't go back that far, but,
We don't do it income-based anyways. We're not an income-based assessment process here, so we don't base it on what you can get off of it in terms of production.
So it's based on acreage.
Just based on acreage.
but, anyway. So, I guess our basic question to you is, are you happy with that one piece being in DB2 and keeping the other one in the R?
Well, what am I allowed to do right now?
No, the list is right there.
See,
R4.
I think what you wanted to change, I don't think it's gonna hurt me, I think it's actually gonna help. I think.
It's gonna help.
I thought
Right.
current
Yeah,
list
something
of uses for R4, which is what your back piece is.
Right.
And that's very wide open, as you can see.
It's cold and everybody's out of town.
So on the R4, if you wanna build houses on that right now, can you?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, you can. That's what the state is.
How many thousand acres you gotta have per lot?
3 acres. 3 acres net residential density. You've got to subtract all the wetlands that are on the site from the total property and then divide what you got left by 3 acres. And that'll tell you how many lots you can get.
Setbacks too, like setbacks.
Depends on what time of the year you get out there.
No, setbacks will be,
Okay.
it's just net residential,
Well,
setbacks
no,
are
it's
right
bad.
over walking off the lot.
Bring them down when it's been really hot in summer, it's right out.
Yeah, but that's when everybody's on vacation. That's what happens on that end.
We thought in August this year we were gonna go get in there with skidders. We did for a week. then it rained for one day, 6 inches of rain.
Yeah.
When I went across down the road, across the Kennebuck River with my tractor, the first week that I was going down there every day, I looked down at the river and the water was about 6 inches deep. Then we got that 6 inches of rain, and I went across the bridge and the water was almost going over the bridge. It was up over the field. The river was full and it was going flooding over the field. In one day.
It's a lot of water, 6 inches of
I
rain.
got down there and the guy running some
We're
track
looking at
skidder.
the R4
Yeah.
The wheel skidder couldn't do nothing. Well, I can't, but he says, I'm sinking in 3 feet deep.
Yeah.
So the track skidder was going down, so they finished up in a couple more days to get out of it.
So the things you can do in the rural conservation zone, the R4, that's quite a list there. It's not
Yeah.
just houses. Quite a lot you can do there. Garden centers and aquaculture, you want to raise tilapia. Home occupations, businesses, land management roads, I love that. That all come. Marina. Like
Yeah,
a
from
inland
Marina to
marina.
Kennebuck River.
Yeah.
Pier, dock, wharf, causeway.
All those good things in inland, yeah, soil and water conservation practices. Timber harvesting less than 40% basal area.
And you still wanna fix that typo,
Which one?
basil?
Oh, you have a yes?
No, I know, we're talking only about the herb. It's a trick.
The soft trees.
It's a trick.
All right.
I thought I changed that. I don't think I
Yeah,
changed it.
one,
now.
apparently.
Apparently not in R4. Good lord. Steve
All
didn't
right,
want
we
the
put campgrounds on the,
It's conditional use, campgrounds, kennels, mineral extraction, golf course, museum, pier wharf, pier dock, what was important, recreational facility,
conditional use. This bottom half is
Well-
conditional uses,
yeah,
that's on the,
No, permanent temporary.
you got your 8.1.2. I don't understand
Point one is your permitted uses, and point two is those that are conditional uses.
that. Conditional.
yeah.
Means they're allowed, but you have to meet certain,
Let's go get permission from somebody.
Yep,
Yeah.
the planning
you
board.
have to see the planning board.
If I want to put a church in, then I gotta get permission.
Yep.
Yep.
So you fixed that, Basil?
Yeah, I did, didn't
Yeah,
I?
you did.
Yeah. Huh,
Just missed it, Pat. That's all.
no, Steve didn't want me to change it.
I-
I did it on an apple, and that was the problem, Steve said, no, it's gonna stay Basil.
Basil.
Most of Steve.
Basil, Basil.
Keep it going.
Do we have, just wondering if we have a description of what the DB2,
Well, of course, but not here. Oh,
I know we weren't planning on it,
No, I might just.
but I just think we're,
Might have it on this computer. Maybe not. Land use ordinance, 2014, when did we do that, 13? DB1. DB2,
Look at that.
hey. Oh, which version?
Oh.
Oh,
You're
I
probably
think that's the
gathering
latest
over.
version either, but that doesn't matter because it's, this stuff didn't change too much. Let's see, what can we do with the DB2? Arts and Craftsman Studios, automobile repair, automobile service stations, automobile watercraft and recreational vehicle sales, breweries and wineries. Let's have a winery there, how do you like that? Catering, food prep, commercial services, contractor storage yards, convention centers, event halls, churches and parish halls, daycare, drive-throughs, garden centers, health clubs, health services, the hospital, lodging, marinas, there's the pesky marina again, medical facilities, municipal uses, Museums, offices, performing arts center and playhouses, personal services, recording studios, radio stations, recreational facilities, recreational rentals, you can put in a town park, residential limited to single family, on a lot of record existing on June 11th, and also split lots are exempt from MRSA, restaurants, retail, service clubs, schools, warehousing, veterinary, and hospitals. Anybody can think of something that we haven't listed? And then we get into conditional uses.
Lumberyards is on that list.
Lumberyards, retail, or wholesale. Depends on what you're doing, retail or wholesale.
Put a mill in.
Let's see, timber harvesting, fuel storage, golf course, low impact. I don't think this included all that residential stuff in there. I don't think this was the latest. That wasn't the latest. This is not the latest. Oh, April 6th, 17th. Good Lord. So this isn't the latest. There are some other ones in
No, but it's still basically very inclusive.
there. Very
Yes, there's not a lot you can't do.
Right.
So now you can have a town hall.
Do you have a, do
Same-
you have
Much
an
more
email
business.
address?
Much more business stuff.
Maybe,
Specifically from the local.
Yes, sir.
would you be able to, mail him so he has a physical copy?
So he doesn't have email.
Of the
Can you-
DB2?
Yeah, can
Sure.
you send him the DB2?
Yeah, if you can give me your address, I'd be happy to. Your mailing address on there?
Yeah, it's on the,
Perfect.
Yeah,
All right,
but-
I'll send you a copy of the DB2.
yeah.
You got it on the tax bill.
Yes,
always
that always
manage-
fun.
I
Yeah,
can't, I was
Yeah.
thinking of it.
Tax
They
bill
won't
right
let me
here.
put it in.
Ain't back for about sending that out.
I got all sorts of things I want to put in the tax bill. They won't let me.
But figure just get a copy of that to you, so that way you'll be able to see kind of what your choices are for whichever way you want to go.
And our next meeting is February 3rd, and we're rather hoping that all of the landowners involved, one way or the other, could, give us some guidance by then, so we can redraw the map and continue with our work. So you've got basically about a month to ponder all the
Well, you'll
possibilities.
come up with a million things by then. They'll tell me every day I come, he has no idea,
There we go. Perfect.
right?
So,
I got to decide whether to sell it or keep it. I haven't done that yet.
Space shuttle launch facility.
Hold it,
That wasn't
there's one in
there,
Goats.
sorry.
yes, I was just going to say that, if you want to take advantage of the DB2
Yeah, hold it.
situation, hang on to it until town meeting and that zoning change passes, and then you've got all those other options.
Right.
Oh, I'd sell it today for the right price.
But I think the right price might be a little higher by then.
Right, in
That's
another
what they're
year.
telling me so far, that my price is too high.
Well, they may catch up with you, once the potential is there.
Somebody wants it, it's not gonna be too high.
Right. So, do you have any other questions? Okay,
Now he's gonna do some thinking.
There we
thinking
go.
is good.
I think it's poison.
Put a cell tower down there, but you don't need them down there.
What's that?
Put a cell tower down there, but you don't need any down there.
No, we
No,
don't actually.
saturated.
We got more than enough.
Well, they put a cap on, cell towers now?
We're not building, they've got coverage
Right now.
right now.
One
yeah.
thing that you gotta remember about cell towers, each tower can only handle so many phone calls.
Yep.
And once you get to that maximum amount, you get another cell tower, I don't care if you're right here. They can only handle like 80 calls per carrier. You can only put 4 carriers per tower. And they can only handle about 80 calls per carrier per any individual second.
I think more computers, and we make a call on tower, you can put more cell sites on
Yeah,
it.
so if you get, once you maximize that out, but see, right now, there's not that many people, so you got Boston, they got them on every damn church and every high building, because they need them.
Yeah.
You can call up to 3 or 4 miles on a cell phone to the tower. But if you got somebody, you got 5 million calls going on in that space, you gotta have more than one tower. You can't handle that. That's why sometimes you try to make a call and can't get through, is because it is overloaded.
Yeah.
I was trying to call the guy at the Broadway Fair, and he was at the fair, and I was at the fair, and I couldn't get hold of him. There's too many cell phones at the Broadway Fair. There's
Yeah.
40,000 people up there using, and there's 10,000 people trying to make a cell phone call at the same time. It's not gonna happen, they can only haul.
It's not your typical Freiburg area phone
They don't put another tower up there just because of the week of Broadway Fair.
How's it?
I mean, it's true, though, it's usually really quiet up there, but the week of Fridays are fair, and it's a little bit crazy.
Yeah. Well, if you have no more questions, we have other things on our agenda we will get to. I certainly thank you for coming out on this nasty night.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna do anything that's gonna do anything that I don't want you to do. Don't look like.
We'll try not to.
Have a nice evening.
You too, thanks for coming.
Like, I'm either gonna keep it or sell it. They're both gonna do things you can't do.
Pretty much. Too big to move.
If I was a little younger, I'd go build houses on it, but. Can't do that. I thought Hamden, my sister, was gonna come up, but we thought that this didn't encompass their land, but it does.
Well, we'll catch up with her.
Yeah.
I'll tell her that it's done.
You left her a message.
Yeah, I don't know where she's at, unless she's on someplace tonight. Told her I'd get up here, if I found out it was covered hers, I'd call her. Well, I did,
Well, you could get through here, right?
Yeah.
With a cell phone.
yeah. Well, we got, the tower went over the years.
That should do it.
Not 8,000 people.
I noticed that.
Not
We didn't get that many people here.
Cold goes, I'm gonna get one.
I'm sorry?
That's-
I guess. Yeah, but no, it's like quorum, Sean just went out. Please come back, Sean. Oh, yeah, I won't be able to.
Now,
I think, give
for
it 15.
all these other folks who didn't show up,
What to do?
yeah,
Well, it sounds like it's survey time.
uh,
Send him a letter, said, look,
Had a
you didn't
meeting.
show up.
right, this year, sorry about that, please tell us by mail what you want to do.
Right.
Or-
Pretty much, I'll send him a map.
By mail or email?
Mail, I don't have their emails.
No, they can respond by email,
They can respond.
yeah.
I will be sending it by mail.
Well, once it's sent by mail, we have a better record of the fact that we actually sent it.
How's that?
Well, I assume you would keep a mailing list.
Well, I keep it going, this doesn't mean I send it.
Okay, moving along.
Are you sure you wanna move along
No,
tonight?
no,
I'm not sure if I'm ready.
if it wasn't so cold that it was, almost not worth coming to begin with, now that we're here, by God,
We're gonna get something done.
That's right. I'm gonna suggest that we not approve any minutes because we don't have them.
I'll second that.
Sold to the man with the motion.
Okay.
So this is what happens when you lose control of the meeting, right?
I don't think of it as a loss of control so much as it just isn't happening. All right, however, when last we met, we were beginning to talk about R4. And I had typed up the composite description from section B and section C. And we had a little bit of a discussion about some possibilities. So based upon my memory and my notes in that original composite, I put together a first draft of something to consider. Which as soon as Tom gets here, I expect to be ripped to shreds, but that's okay.
Get some. Oh, thank you. Always good to be an important member of the meeting. Oh, I get the entire set.
You're gonna have a ream of paper when you're done.
This is good. This is good. Let's cut back on the budget.
Yeah, most of these are blank, but
Really?
yes, every other one.
I'm really glad that we got this new copier. Well, actually, it's the old copier, not the new copier. Same as the old. The new one came in, the
Yeah,
demo
it
came in
goes
right.
like that, so,
All right.
there you go, you can
I don't
recycle
know
that.
why they took it.
So they just leased the copy, right?
Oh, no, we did, yeah, they're all leases, but the one we were demoing, and,
I think this one should be a release. What you see in italics is, are either words or phrases that I added based upon our discussion. The rest of it is basically the original language with some, grammatical changes just to make it work.
Now, does this include that whole section of 111 too?
It was all of the current R4.
So currently, we have to preserve 50% of the developable area when we're building.
If there's a subdivision.
The town should work cooperatively with landowners as opposed to not
Ignore them
cooperatively.
completely. Which,
I'm so glad nobody's gonna watch this.
I can provide an argument for that as well. The last paragraph was where it went on about the town providing funding and working with land trusts and all of that. And I eliminated the land trust thing because we can
Just summed it up
we can put
very
it back,
quickly.
but
Well, we do work with land trusts occasionally, because they come in. We don't provide them with any money.
right, and it's usually the landowner that initiates that.
It's the landowner initiates it
Right,
completely.
so I didn't see
They just
where
come in
that,
to let us know that it's gonna be coming off the rolls as a taxable property.
I didn't see where that was something that we needed to have in the comprehensive plan necessarily, because it's landowner initiated. However, since Beth oversees tree growth and farmland and open space provisions, which assist with some of the, keeping it open, there is a town function there.
I'm just waiting for Tom to show up now.
Or anybody else to say anything deep and meaningful about this. Boy, I could start a riot in here if I wanted to.
Well, I
We
have
had one going
a
last
few
time.
comments, but I don't think they're gonna go over well. I didn't like it when we did it the first time, I don't like it this time either. I don't understand why, as a town, we want to penalize people who own property in a specific area. Because this is actually a penalty. I didn't like it when we did it the first time.
What, the 3 acres?
No, I don't mind the 3 acres. I don't like having to preserve 50%, and it's 50% of the developable land. So hypothetically, you've got a 100-acre piece.
40 acres are in wetland.
And,
That leaves you 60 acres and you can only develop 30.
yeah. If you live in that area, you know that some of these wet areas are just as valuable
Oh, that's no question.
in regards to preserving. So why would you go after the developable area, and why wouldn't you allow them to use all of their land, since they've already got a higher density anyway? So you've already got a 3-acre density versus 2 or 1. So you've already penalized them there. And number one, I don't like the 50% anyway. I don't think we did 50% in any of the other areas. We didn't make them have to preserve any of the land in any of the other areas.
Well,
Why?
because the other areas where the goal is to push the development there. I mean, that's the,
That's not where it's going.
I understand, but that's the rationale for this.
Right, and I understand that, but I also understand that people who live in these areas may not necessarily want to have to abide by this. I think that this is, and I'll say it again, I didn't like it when it got done the first time. I kind of drew my lines in the sand when we did it the first time because I got some of the other stuff taken out. But I don't like having to restrict what people can do with their property. I think it's too restrictive. I think that 50% of their developable land is a lot, especially since a lot of these areas are wet. I mean, by the time I took all the wet stuff off of mine, I wouldn't have a whole lot. And then by the time I take out what the stupid DOT wants to take, I'll be lucky if I can build on any of it at all. So I think it's too restricted. I mean, we went over and above to try to assist the people that were in the R1, R2, DB2, DB1. But then in this one particular piece, and believe me, I've preserved my piece forever. I like having my land. But I think that this is pretty hard on people when you take 50%. If it was 25% of the land or 50% of the land, not the developable piece, but 50% of the whole piece, that's a little easier to take. Then you carve everything out, and then you can only use 50% of what's left.
Well, the original concept was to try to preserve the rural aspects of town. And I think you've just made a pretty good case for let's turn Route 111 into a commercial zone.
Except for her property.
No. It's, it's not even that. It's if you wanted to do something on it, even on a small scale, you can't do it. I'm not saying that I want to take 111 and turn it into an industrial zone. But I think that there has to be some checks and balances as to what you do. I think that you could take some of the uses in R4 and you could expand some of them without destroying what's there. My issue with this is that when you own property and you have to take out all the stuff that they don't consider developable, and then you can only build on 50% of it, when no other area in town has to abide by that development law. That's fundamentally, to me, not right. If you want to let them do 10-acre lots, which to me, I don't understand why we could never do that in town. That just seems foolish.
Well, that was what we discussed last time before I put it in, because even when we talked to the planning board, they said, it's doable.
If somebody wants to do 10-acre lots, that's fine. But see, if you took my piece, I've got 61 acres. If I wanted to do 10-acre lots, which would leave it still looking pretty nice, but you can't do it because once you carve out 50% of it, I'm probably left with 3 lots. Because it's all wetland. And that to me just doesn't make any sense. It's a penalty. This is almost a penalty for keeping your land free.
How about if we change at least 50% to a reasonable amount to maintain the rural character?
But then, no, you can't, see, you can't even do that. Because then that leaves it at one person's thought versus another person's thought of what that would be.
But still, this is just like a guideline for the planning board, and it'd be more planning board's responsibility to kind of define that, right?
Oh yeah, just line us up against the
Even I know you can't do something like that.
Would you like to go and hold a cigarette now?
Oh yeah, I'll start smoking again just when that happens.
Well, instead of just shooting everything down, I'm just trying to offer up some kind of.
No, I didn't shoot the whole thing down. What I said is that the developable area piece and the percentage is the part that bothers me.
Yes, but you've reiterated that 4 or 5 times, but you haven't offered up any alternative, which you think might be a good idea.
I did. I said that you needed to change this 50% to probably something like 25%, and the developable area should be just the area, not the developable piece of it. Because it should be your whole piece. Because otherwise, some of these landowners, they're not gonna be able to do anything. And yes, that'll certainly accomplish what you want, and it'll be less scenic. Or people will find a way to get around it, and then they'll build stuff on it that you don't like or you don't want.
Well, the opening paragraph does end with the phrase preserving open space. I think that's pretty much what this does, is to preserve open space. If we don't want to preserve open space, then let's not call it R4, let's call it R1, R2, whatever. I think if we go down the track that Diane wants to go, we're losing the whole concept of a rural, undeveloped
And that's
area.
okay, I just said my piece. I said I don't like it.
I understand Diane's point, it's because that's one of those things that you just have to make a choice between. I mean, if I had my druthers, I would take the entire ordinance and throw it out and let people do on their land whatever they wanted. Personal responsibility. Your land, you pay for it, you do whatever you want. That's not necessarily practical in a world where we have to live with each other. So I always have to step back from that and say, okay, what's a reasonable amount of control or ordinance or whatever category you want to put that in? She is right in that this is restrictive to a group of people that the other districts do not restrict in such a way. But a lot of the land in R4 is also self-restricting because so much of it is wetland and other ledge or blue clay or, you know, all the things that would naturally restrict the development. So there is that problem. I mean, if I look at my land, and I was thinking about this while Diane was talking, okay, regardless of how you write this, most of my land is not developable. So what that means is whether I'm restricted by the town or I'm not, I'm an idiot for buying it if I wanted to use it to make money. But that's not why I bought it. So I'm okay, but somebody else who lives next door to me or 3 properties over might not feel that way. So somewhere in that mix, there's a reasonable compromise. You know, maybe 50% is too much. Maybe the word developable shouldn't be there. But going to John's point, we have to be careful how much we loosen it up or we're going to lose the whole point of the district.
Let me ask a question. Why don't we just, I thought last time we were talking about doing 5-acre lots.
That's even more restrictive.
Yeah.
It's actually to be less restrictive in many ways.
What, you mean 5-acre lots and take out the 50%?
Yeah.
No, because if you go to 5 acres, then your 5 acres is still just, you're kind of doing the same thing because your 5 acres is just the land that you can use.
Yeah, well, what I was thinking is if we went to a large lot and then large lot size, and they gave that design bonus, that you could go down in density if you preserved open space. That might be a lot easier to take than saying, well, you've got 3 acre zone, but you've got to give us 50% of your developable land. Just, it's less restrictive than that.
Well, you know, someplace
Is it as effective as this? Probably not.
It has to be the appropriate carrot.
Yeah, there's got to be a carrot.
But 5-acre lots, I mean, let's assume we did that, and everybody said, okay, I'm happy with 5-acre lots. There goes your rural character preserving open space, because you're gonna have a house every 5-acre lot.
Right. All right, 10-acre lots. We'll do Auburn zoning. 10-acre lots. And you can go less if you do it clustered or if you preserve X number of open space. So you get you're not automatically losing 50% right up front. You're just saying, here's a 10-acre lot. You can do 10-acre lots, not fun. If you want to do 3 acres or you want to do 2 acres, you preserve X number of open space. We'll give you 2-acre lots. We'll give you 1-acre lots if you preserve this much. You know, we'll even put in density bonuses for it. You know, so I mean that might be one way. I mean, the planning board's gonna have to play with this. We're gonna have to sit there with a lot of trace paper trying to figure out where all the loopholes are, where the mines are, where it's gonna blow up and everybody's gonna want to kill us.
One of the lines is as soon as you say 5 acres or 10 acres.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much explanation, I think that's, you know.
But as soon as you say 50% of developable, I think you get the same reaction Diane gave.
Not as much.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think, well, I mean,
think
the fact that we already have that passed tells us that that's passable. 5 acre
Did
lots.
we get that, did we come up with that last time? I had a terrible short.
Oh, this goes back a long time. This is.
The last meeting.
No, that's the original language.
This was
That's
original language?
the 50%, yes.
I think that got put in the last one. I don't think it was in the one before
Well,
that.
which last
Yeah,
one?
which last one?
2002?
The one, the giant Fleshman one,
2002.
5.
5.
I think 5 was.
Well, we started it in 2. It went on forever. All right, where's my original? I probably don't have this. I do. I know. But we know that can pass because it has. 5 acres was talked about once upon a time.
Well, you think it can pass,
Didn't
unless you
you
have
like
somebody
it?
like me go up there and say, I don't like it. And then everybody realizes what it is and then it won't pass. Or it may not pass. But when you go after 50% of the developable area,
It's in the 2005.
Was 2005, 50%?
Yeah. Yeah, and prior to that, I guess it was in 2002, we tried the 5 acres, and that was World War III.
That's easier than this. 5 acres is nothing compared to this.
But that's not how it was perceived, apparently. So if we're going to come up with an alternative approach, we would have to formulate the language that you're talking about the planning board coming up with beforehand to sell this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the only way to do it. We're gonna have to show them how to do this. If they're gonna sell this concept. How it works.
Yeah.
Because if we do, just keep it loosely up there, then we're gonna take 50%, we can get the same reaction that Diane just had. Even though it was done, even though it goes back to Fleischman with 2002. Doesn't matter, people say, well, it's there.
because once you carve everything out and then you take 50%, that leaves a lot of these lots with nothing.
Oh,
Which I think is
the whole-
probably
which
what
is
they,
the whole point of
which
this.
is, right.
This
Yeah.
is the R4.
Yeah. And this area doesn't necessarily happen just by accident. It's also due to the nature of the land. I mean, this is the original agricultural area. This is the area where the soils are not conducive to housing developments and businesses and all that stuff that we've been talking about. So setting aside, let me play with another idea. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, sometime next week we schedule Armageddon. And as a town, we have to survive on our own. Once we're done destroying all the agricultural land, what are we going to do? There's no answer to that. I just thought I'd throw that out.
Well, I'm not saying to destroy it, I'm just saying that I think that going after the developable piece of it.
Well, but the developable piece is also the piece that you can farm.
It's true. Unless you're doing the rice. Green canary grass. There's a market for that.
Tom, you've missed a very productive meeting.
I see we had a large turnout here.
We have to get
We had to bolt the doors.
However, the one citizen who did show up was very interested and provided us with good input, so that was worth it.
It was very entertaining.
Entertaining.
And yes, we had good
A lot of good
conversation.
stories, yep.
We did. Very interesting fellow. Anyway, so we're on our board sheet, which I think is the bottom page.
Perhaps we have to really get a little more specific than we want to.
But I
Because
don't,
we're not gonna sell, I mean, we're gonna have tough selling for this.
I don't know that there's a good answer to this, but I think we can come up with a better answer.
If this is the wording in the present ordinance, I think you'll have an easier time selling the fact that we are not changing the existing ordinance than changing it to something like 5-acre or 10-acre lots.
I agree with you.
But we know 3 acre ain't doing the job.
Well, yes, that's the other part of the
3
problem.
acres not there, I mean, 3 acres is nothing, and it's filling up with subdivisions, that was the complaint. And we're not really doing much to preserve large open spaces. So if you automatically do 3 acres, the rest of this stuff doesn't matter.
Did all those developments down by me put 50% of the developable area away?
No. No, I have no provision in the ordinance that does that. All I've got is net residential density, which is standard throughout the state. And they put some real little things in it.
Okay.
Which
so-
just requires all the impervious surface, all the, all of the hydric soils, all the wetlands, all the steep slopes of more than 20%, which isn't steep. And impervious surfaces, meaning the driveways, or more importantly, the roadways, are deducted from the gross lot area. And then you take what's called the developable area and divide that by the zoning density, in this case 3 acres. And what the planning board has done is said, okay, well, there's your density, and you can get 10 lots out of this project. We'll let you do we're gonna require you now to cluster it. If you're doing a subdivision, so you're gonna have to cut those lots down to 1.5 acres, and that'll reduce your frontages and make the roads much less extensive than they would be. It ends up not really being that much less extensive. And you end up with some good, nice chunks, but they're always in the back, where nobody can see them.
So in effect, what you're saying is even though this language is here and it's
We're not
here,
doing
It's
it.
never been
we're
done.
not doing it.
No, we're
Yes.
not doing it.
And then,
It's never done. It's never been done. It's sort of like 50% of Kate's butter land in permanent open space. Didn't
okay,
happen.
so obviously you have no problem, because it worked diddly squat.
Well, the problem that I always have with this, and I kind of knew that they weren't doing it because I've seen the housing developments going by my house. The problem is that I never see what's going to happen with the planning board and whether or not they're going to start enforcing this, and at that point, then I have a problem.
Okay.
They have not. There's no language in the ordinance that requires 50% of the land to be put in open space.
Then I have to ask, then why in the dickens would we put it in the comp plan if we're not going to enforce it, and we're not going to do it?
And
Well-
that's an extremely valid question.
It's a very valid question. I would say that since we're doing the ordinance, and we are following what this says, what this committee has been doing, I
Yeah,
think we would
ordinances.
suddenly have to do it, wouldn't we?
And then, at town meeting.
Then we're gonna be
you'll
up
have-
against the wall. That's when I want my cigarette shown.
Wow. And you're
You want
blindfolded, or you're gonna
blindfolded
take my
or
advice?
No, I might as well see it coming.
I've watched them all go in at down my road,
Yeah,
and I've walked them,
yeah.
so I know.
And you're going, where's the 50%? Because it's not.
All
We
right.
can show you on the map that it's not 50%. And certainly that 50% is not developable. I think the only place where I've seen this actually might have
A lot of it's
happened.
horseshoe, or it's got little pieces in the back or pieces
Yeah,
on the
it's
side.
the donut. It's the donut design. The only place where I think we ever actually got large quantities, from what I can see, and I'm not sure it's necessarily tied up forever, it would be Talbot Woods. I think Talbot Woods had a big chunk of land.
Kayla did too, but I think a piece of it was left so that it could be developed.
In the future, and there's also wetlands like crazy out there. I mean, that's pretty wet soil out on the back.
Yeah,
The hemlocks kind of tell you that.
it's my front farm.
There you go. So, no, the plan was never implemented.
So,
Which might be one of the reasons why it's not working.
Yeah,
Might be one.
that occurred to me. All right.
but I
Because to
think if
be
you
very
try to
honest with
make
you,
it
I have
work, and people, I'm gonna tell you what happens. You guys can believe me or not believe me. People look at the comp plan, and yes, it's kind of a road plan. It might say certain things, and they kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
But then they're gonna go look at your land use regulations, and that's what drives them. And when they see that the land use regulations really start to reflect some of this, that's when it's not gonna pass. You might get it passed in your comp plan, but if you try to reflect this into your land use regulations, then that's when you're gonna have a problem, because people are gonna see that you've now taken away the worth of their property. And I've kept my property for 20 years, I've never built anything on it. So you don't necessarily need rules and regulations to have somebody preserve their property. Some people do it just because they just like it.
Right.
And some of us are just plain stinking stubborn,
Agreed.
period. And that's just the way we are, and it'll stay that way for a good long time, or until we get sick and even.
Exactly, and that's what always happens. And then the next person usually will have to finance that, and they'll cut off a couple pieces. Because they have to finance the sale. the
But
purchase.
if you're not going to do this in the land use regulations, then it shouldn't be in here.
Well, I agree with that.
Well, now that I know it's, I'll tell you honestly, I haven't touched R4 because it's a hand grenade. I haven't, the planning board has not wanted to touch it, so let the comp plan committee deal with it. And it isn't until you just told me, and I haven't read it, to be honest with you, because I said, okay, we'll just let this group start doing it. I was not aware that this was required. In the comp plan right now, the planning board has not done it, just like they haven't done with a couple of other things. And I'm not blaming the planning board, well, I guess I am now. Guys, we're gonna be working on this. Because this is a mandate. This is what the taxpayers and the voters said had to be done, and it wasn't done.
All right, so
Can
we
you
have
explain?
an ideal opportunity here.
Yeah, we do.
To take something that we have had, that has never been implemented, and be creative enough to come up with something that A, can work the way it was designed to work, which this hasn't,
Right.
and B, is acceptable and palatable and will be implemented.
So you might have to do some of the planning board's work here.
Good job.
You have no idea the forces that you're engaging here. But I think it makes sense, and I think we have to make a case. We have to make a case that this is why we want to do this. What doesn't work, how this ordinance, or how this comp plan thing can actually be implemented as it was passed in 2005, I assume. And show that it either works or it doesn't work, and then come up with an alternative that would work, or at least be more palatable. So Diane doesn't stand up for me.
Well, I don't disagree with her. See, I guess the Diane is rightly standing on principle here, that this is an unfair restriction for a portion of the town. I look at it more philosophically and say, oh well, sucks to live there, and I'm willing to accept it, but I
Which is
don't.
a school of planning,
But I don't disagree with her.
Yeah.
In terms of its inherent unfairness and unworkability. What I'm looking for is, what would be a good solution to preserve the open space in the long term without stepping all over the landowners?
You gotta have more carrots.
Well, yes,
You have to have more
I
carrots.
agree with you, the carrots are the way to go, but what are the carrots that we can provide that make sense and that are, I guess, also both easily understandable and workable? So here I am as Joe landowner, and I've got 100 acres, and I want to do, I need to do something. I don't want to, but I need to for financial reasons, to put it in the worst case scenario. All right, what are my options, and how is it most fair to me to solve my problem because it's my property and I've paid for it?
Still, in a way, that meets the townspeople's objective. Because this stuff came from surveys and whatever. now I'm getting a question of surveys, but it came from surveys and a lot of input from the people saying we want to preserve rural character. And so this is what they came up with, and the goal still is there. The goal is still there, even in the EDC, even in the very brief public opinion poll that Chesapeake Group did during the EDC project. Once again, the question of rural character, or the issue of rural character, and Arundel's unique rural character was one of its primary and principal attributes. And so that has not disappeared.
No, and I think the fact that that answer has come up time and time again, survey after survey, regardless of who did the survey, who
Right.
wrote the survey, who interpreted the survey, is always the same answer. I think that's at least one very reliable piece of data. If we go against that, that's at our own peril. So again, let's come up with some proposed carrots. I mean, you're in a better position to come up with some ideas because you've seen how it's done in other places.
Yeah.
So maybe for our next meeting, if we can perhaps have, 3 possible ways to go in addition to the one that we've got.
I'd be happy to do that.
I guess my only, a year ago, whenever it was, you said, the interpretation of what rural character means is very individual. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, are we preserving our eye-appealing supposed rural character, or are we actually trying to preserve natural resources like animal habitat, agriculture? I guess that's where,
I think it's both.
then who are we, like anyone else, to say what we think rural character should look like? That's a really tough job, because I don't think that you and I would agree exactly on what we perceive as rural. Even if you threw that survey out to all those people, what does that mean? Did somebody say, oh, it's 111, or I don't think that it would mean a lot of different things to different people. Is it just because we're a small little town?
No.
Does that mean rural?
There's lots of small little towns.
I mean, is that what, I don't know, did somebody do that on the survey because of that? I mean, I don't know.
I think it's almost like that classic definition of pornography. There's no definition, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah. Is it because we don't have a downtown? I mean, that could be what people, some of them filling it out, perceive. Has nothing to do with house lot size or development. I don't know.
I think a lot of it, frankly speaking, is open field vistas, is what really is perceived.
In terms of the visual
The
aspects.
visual aspect, I mean, because I think rural character, as we discussed before, rural character is also dumping your old Buick in the backyard, and letting it rust out there, and the kids using it.
As long as there's a geranium on the hood, it's not a problem.
That's what the tires are for. I mean, that's
Old toilets.
the toilet's the same thing, yeah. Right. Or throw out an old bed, that's bedding out, But, I mean, the character that most people, I think, are referring to are classic New England archetypes of open fields and barns, that kind of thing. That's what they think of. They think of open space, the ability to see. That's what they like.
And then I'll go and agree with Diane and say, who are we to say, I want to have my eyes appeal to rural character, but I don't own it.
Well,
Which
I
is
don't
always what happens.
understand.
yes,
Yes.
and I have an issue with that piece too, because I can remember sitting, before I was ever in a comp plan committee, sitting at a meeting where there was this discussion. In fact, it was one of the reasons I decided to get involved. And a gentleman sat there and he described his vision of rural character was being able to drive by and see the cows and the horses and the sheep, and that was important to him, that happened in this town. And I said to myself, and who's feeding those cows, horses, and sheep? You? Or are you just there as a tourist? And that got my gander up, because it's somebody else's responsibility to have the cows so he can look at them? I think not. So John and I had a running joke for a long time. We said, once this all passes, we're going to put up a 12-foot fence with a sign on that says rural character, other side. Because, how much is too much? And I think that's the balance we have to strike here. But to go back to another point that you made, in terms of, what rural character is, and is it habitat as well as just the looks of the place? Yeah, I think it is, because I think part of what people value in this town, and I've picked up a lot of this through just talking to people through the Historical Society, is the heritage of the town, which is an agricultural heritage. They understand what land is, what it's for, what the potential is, so whether it's an open field or forest or a stream or a brook. And that was why I put in the word edges here, because those are very important habitats. To keep the attendant wildlife and vegetation in place, you can't just have, a house and then this 2-foot strip of shrubbery to attract all the necessary stuff that makes this all work. So it's really, it's like a large mosaic in my mind. And the rural character is part scenery, it's part the physical place and what lives there, plant and animal, large and small, and it's also part attitude. If you talk to people who live in Arundel about what neighbor means as opposed to people who live in some other places, it's like a different species. We have a very different attitude about what the word neighbor means, and that's part of rural character. So it's this huge piece, and I don't know where we're going to put that in the comp plan, but it's still part of what this town is. And if you keep chopping it up, at the point when Arundel becomes a true suburb, where there's a house on every acre, we will have lost the character of the town. And that's something that I don't want to see happen. I don't want to play a part in that happening. So, yeah, do I want to protect large tracts of land because I like the looks of them? You bet. But that's not the only reason, because that's a piece of that bigger mosaic. Does that make any sense? Okay. I have difficulty articulating that.
I think you did well.
I think one of the problems is that Arundel definitely does have an agricultural heritage, as you mentioned. And when you're trying to preserve, this rural character, it was one thing 50 years ago when you had an active agricultural industry. Unfortunately, if you look at the statistics for any kind of employment, agriculture has been on a steady downhill slide for about 50 years. So you don't have that base of employment which allows you to have farms and open fields and that type of thing. And I hate to see the rural character of the town disappear, but I have a feeling that over the long term, we're probably fighting a losing fight here, because I don't think the agricultural industry is coming back. I think that trying to operate a small farm these days, when you're competing with huge, industrial outfits in the Midwest, it's a losing proposition. It's almost impossible to make money out. So I think we're in for a real tough ride here, trying to come up with some kind of a scheme which will maintain these open areas. I think this is going to be a real tough one to come up with a realistic way of doing it.
Well, I wouldn't argue at all with the fact that agriculture as a small family business is on the decline, or has been on the decline. I don't know that there isn't going to be some rebound because of everything else going on in the world and just people's attitudes about preferring food that's been grown close to home as opposed to somewhere out in the Midwest and genetically engineered. So, but that's, both of our crystal balls there are probably not up to snuff in terms of predicting that accurately. But there's also it's easy to fall into the trap of a very narrow view of what agriculture is or what those open fields are for. So, for example, you might see a field that is apparently vacant, nothing's going on, but it is being hayed, and that hay is going someplace, even if it's not to an Arundel farmer necessarily. It's being harvested and used. The same thing's true of all the forested areas. Doesn't look like much is going on, and then one day you see that the logging trucks are in there and they're doing some cutting, and then that allows new growth, and in 20 years, they're gonna cut it again. So it's apparently vacant land, but it's busy vacant land. And
That would be great.
It's generating an income for the person who owns the land.
That would be great, but if people were doing that and generating any kind of a reasonable income, there wouldn't be the incentive to subdivide their land for residential construction. Well, I wish that was the case, that we had all kinds of people making money logging or farming or whatever. I would love it.
I bet there's more of that going on than you realize in town, but that's neither here nor there. The fact is that people are still selling their land to subdivisions and putting up houses. So I think that takes us back to the carrots. If I can make X amount of dollars doing one thing versus Y amount of dollars doing the other, and something is happening to make that pretty equivalent, and I'd rather keep my land open than not, where do we find that balance?
I don't want it.
I know, and I don't either, but maybe we can.
I think we can, you just can't articulate it immediately right now. What we can do is provide carrots to get people to basically get the housing they need for economic purposes, but put it in back sections of the land or cluster it so you can preserve some sections of open space, not giant sweeps of it, but some sections of open space that are visible from the road, that are linked to an important wildlife habitat, you know, like brimstone, or that, you know, some important wildlife corridor. We have maps of where our significant farmland soils are, and you can have a bonus density for not building on a farmland soil. We'll give you another extra acre for every acre of farmland soil you don't build on. You can have another building lot, some sort of swap that way, and basically to give an economic incentive for somebody not to do something on that land. And that might be the only way that we might be able to do it. Whether you can get a soils test on it is another story. But we have precious little good farmland left. We have no prime farmlands here. We have, you know, a certain amount of farmland of statewide significance, but it's very small.
Yeah.
Most of it's local significance farmland. We all know where it is, and it's out your way. Billy's got some. Most of it's in line. Some of it's on, you know, London. And Ben's got some of it up on the hill. It's up on the hill there. And the Kimball's has it. And there's not a lot else around that's prime farm soil. But so we have target areas. I mean, it's not like it's this gigantic area. We can find target areas of important locations, important resources that we want to preserve, and then we can come up with some ways of making trades for it.
I think the other thing is we need to not lose sight of the bigger picture. Where we started with this whole process was in creating some expanding some business districts and creating new uses that they could employ, expanding the mixed-use districts so that there were more opportunities for businesses to move into town to lower the tax base for the residential areas. As soon as you do that, that also helps out the people who own X amount of acres, as well as the smaller landowners. But if we're talking about open space, if you would relieve some of the tax burden on the people who have the larger tracts of land, that takes away some of the incentive they may have at some point to sell some of that land and make money as income. Because, you know, just as the gentleman tonight was referring to, you know, he's paying too much taxes on it to keep it, and he wants to sell it. Well, maybe if the tax burden was less.
I think you might be able to justify that, Donna, if somebody had, if somebody were able to derive some economic income from a large tract. But I think it would be very hard to justify to the people in town who own smaller lots that you're going to give a tax break to the large landowners.
No, I'm not suggesting you give them a tax break. I'm just saying if residential taxes in general came down,
Yeah.
because the business community was providing more taxes, then that eases the pressure on everybody across the board, including large landowners So that they're saying, I've got 100 acres, what am I gonna do with 100 acres? I could sell 10 acres, and you follow now. It was- yeah, but
I
wasn't-
see what you mean, but I think when you actually start cranking the numbers on that, the amount of economic development that you would need in town to make to have a significant impact on the overall tax base, it's a staggering amount of money.
Well, that was what our goal was, wasn't it?
That was our goal, yeah.
Yeah, but as soon as you start bringing it in, the schools spend it.
Well, that's a whole different problem. So,
Just to kind of throw this up there. How about, we have this line on here, subdivisions require at least 50% of the developable area. However, if someone is using it for permitted or conditional use, it would be knocked down to 25%.
I'm not sure I follow you. Because, putting in a subdivision is a permitted use.
Okay. Or the permitted use, conditional use, excluding pure residential.
Because essentially what you're gonna be doing now is, if you wrote your land use regulations to mimic this now, because it doesn't now, but if you did it, essentially, sorry, Tom, you're going to be penalizing those of us that haven't built on our property and haven't sold it yet.
But Diane.
And then at that point, you're gonna have me saying, Dot, bring it up 111. Because if my, then I have to look at my lesser of two evils. Would I rather have my property as commercial? Or would I rather be restricted up the Yahoo so I can't do anything with the property that I've protected for 20 some odd years? And then now you've alienated me because now you've really, now I not only have 100-foot setback and 50-foot sides and so much from the back, and I have to do this and this and this because I live in this area, but now you want to take 50% of my buildable land and leave me with this little tiny piece. And there are more than just me. I'm not the only person in this situation. And when you start getting this restrictive, then you're going to lose it. It's not going to be just me. Other people who have kept their property, who haven't built their property, will either sell it before you pass it to try to get their money out of it, or they'll show up at the town meeting and say, you're not going to do this. I won't vote for this part of the land use regulation because you're now doing something to me that no one else in town has to do. And I'll once again go back. I have kept my property open without your having restricted the living daylights out of me. But if you decide to get more restrictive, then what's my incentive to keep it? My incentive to keep it, because all you're doing is taking any worth out of my property away from me without giving me anything for it. And like I said, it's not just me, it's everyone that's in this situation. Because R4 is pretty big. This affects all of R4. So it affects a lot of property owners.
I agree with you, but when you say we would be taking the value of your property away when I'm restricting development on it anyway, the only way you are going to make any money on it is to open it up for development. And that's precisely what this land use ordinance, as it's written now, is designed to do. Right?
But
It's designed to keep.
that's the way the comp plan was
Comp
written,
plan,
but
yeah.
not the way our land use regulations are today. So they're not mimicking each other. When you try to make those two mimic each other, there's going to be, if you word it like this, there will be a bloodbath.
We always enjoy those.
I mean, I'm not trying to make it, I'm just,
Yeah, no,
I've lived here for over 30, I forget how many years now, it's over 30. And I know, I mean, you can't even say the S word or the V word, but you try to do something like this, there's a lot of properties in R4. And so it affects a lot of people.
There it is right there.
And it's,
60% of the town.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Easily.
okay? It's going to break loose. And, you know, it's, as somebody that sits on this committee, not just for myself, but we're supposed to be representative of our town. I have to tell you, that's what's gonna happen. You know, I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, no problem, you know, and you're gonna go to town meeting and all it's gonna be
It's our land.
because people will figure it out.
Well, I think we more or less has come to the conclusion that something in that sentence has to change. And that takes us back to, you know, some alternative solutions and carrots. You know, if you're gonna restrict people and what they can do, then you need to balance that with something positive. I just want to go back to what you said before, because I'm not sure I understood where you were going with your idea.
Okay.
So,
Well, it's just, you know, we got,
take a 100-acre piece.
you know, permitted and conditional uses, but if you want to preserve the rural character, you know, whatever, if you have particular items that help preserve that rural, you know, if you got someone that comes in and that, you know, you put up half your property up for sale, and they're like, well, I want to build a barn, and I want to have cattle, and I want to have this there. Well, your cow's going to need grazing land. I'm not sure where I'm trying to go with this, but I'm just trying to throw out at least some option. I'm trying to offer up some options. So I'm just saying that instead of like, you know, preserve 50% of developable land as it is now. If you want to go in with a business that helps preserve the rural appeal and look and character, then reduce that down to 25% of the
But
developable
that
land.
50% only applies to subdivision.
Residential
Residential
subdivisions, that's what we
It's
should,
only,
make that distinction.
it's only if you want to build on
You want to build a house on it.
Right. So if somebody's gonna go in and do, well, like Kate's butter. No, I can't use that, never mind, because that's got that language in it. With the exception, the equestrian facility, that 50% doesn't apply. They can have their barns and their paddock and,
because it's a single,
right. So this is only a restriction on subdivisions. So I mean, that really is what it boils down, that's the piece we need to address, I guess.
So if it's only a subdivision,
And it is, it's making, deterring development out here, which that's, R4 is supposed to be doing. Otherwise, we'll have developments, and the school system will be all crazy, and that's what we're trying to prevent.
Well, that's, exactly, there's an economic side to that.
Yeah.
And that's the residential subdivision is, that it's the biggest money loser for the community. The community looks at it as a balance sheet.
Most acreage and most potential.
It's the most
of having
potential, having-
more subdivisions.
Yes. So, the objective is basically to reduce, you know, the incentive to do it, but recognizing at the same time that there's an economic need for people to be able to sell out a piece of their land to meet, you know, life obligations, be it healthcare, be it retirement, be it a whole bunch of things. So, try to figure out a way to accomplish that, at the same time meet the goal of trying to preserve the visual and the cultural and the environmental heritage out there. And that's not an easy task.
So that statement would not apply to an individual house lot.
Yeah, and that's the problem, because, you know, frankly speaking, I know we have those like Drive and several the other ones out there, but in the last 7 years, most of the development out there is all subdivision activity. It's basically subdivision by its family division or subdivision by 5-year divisions. Basically, what I would call exempt lots, lots that are exempt from the subdivision law. That's where most of the cutting is occurring right now, in divisions. And we have no provisions for that. We have no controls over that, except minimum lot sizes. That's it. They don't even have to meet net residential density. Because net residential density only applies to subdivisions that go through the planning process. So you've got a real backdoor problem that's occurring here. And planning board grappled with that with the cluster, and when frankly staff said, you know, if you're gonna require a cluster for the guy who comes up from Portland to develop a piece of land, how can you not also require that same cluster for the family that's dividing up all the property for the kids to build their houses? What's the difference? They're doing it because of the exemption, but from a real land use perspective, they're doing the same thing. One's regulated, one's not. One's required to cluster, and the other one's not. So that's most of the divisions that we're seeing in the last 7 years or so. So that's a whole nother dimension to think about.
There's no easy answer to that one either.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't.
I mean, that's just gonna be the natural course of events.
Yeah, I think, actually, frankly speaking, the only thing that's been a deterrent onto that has been the private way standard, which have been in force since, what, 95 or whatever it is?
Once it's been subdivided for the family, how long do they have to hold it before they can sell it?
5 years. And they do, because,
That was their intention.
Well, in some cases, yeah, in other cases, you know, they get transferred or they get a divorce and, you know, the court says sell. They gotta sell it to a non-family member. Some cases, and in many cases, sometimes when they don't build it according to the standards, to our minimum standards, they can't get financing to sell it. Or the people buying can't get financing. So they're stuck with it. So.
So outside the subdivision context, for the planning board, we don't have any requirements for net present. Well, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Yeah?
Yes.
That makes no sense, not to.
No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all.
And
Because it was
if
the
you
old-
have
that
those
was the-
requirements, can you not think about relaxing those requirements as an incentive for people to keep?
That might be one too. That might be another incentive thing.
I didn't realize we didn't have that.
Well,
You
I'm
do
talking about
take
the
up
planning
roads,
board.
don't we?
Beg pardon?
We take up rights of ways, don't we, at this point? That's subtracted from the lot size, isn't
The right of way is.
it? Yeah.
But,
But
wetlands, slopes, no.
That's,
But actually, no, the right of way isn't. The right of way is taken out.
yeah.
But, yeah, it is. You're
Yeah.
right, it is. But it's not always, we have it at the right of way. In other towns, it's 15%.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do, it's 15% of the land is automatically taken out from rights of way, driveways, and other impervious surfaces. We don't do it that way. Thank goodness. So, yeah, I've mentioned that to the planning board, and they didn't want to touch that. So, but, you know, that's a fairness issue. And it's also the issue, that's one of the reasons why we're seeing houses pop up, you know, off Thompson Road and other places, that they look like weeds out there, just kind of look random. You know, that's how we drive by, they kind of, out in the middle of nowhere, a couple of them went over here. That's because of the new divisions. Fairview Drive, one of my favorite places, is all divisions. Can't get there. No, not 4 wheels, 4-wheel drive.
Where's that?
Off from Thompson. Tough one. So, you know, we want to, from an economic standpoint, we don't want to encourage residential housing out there. At the same time, we don't also want to be able to provide the landowner with the opportunity to meet those needs that they encounter, and their goals that they have. And at the same time, we need to preserve land out there for road character, which is what one of the major goals of the citizens of this town, as you said, Don, over and over and over again. They say, do this, do this. We don't care how you do it. Well, we actually do, and you'll find out at town meeting, but do it. Figure out a way to do it. So we've got, this is the toughest question we're going to be facing in this whole complicated rewrite of this. I And I think we're gonna have to go into it a little more detail than leaving it to the planning board to do.
And nothing about it. No.
Yeah, they have, well, look at our corridor protection overlay district, which, nothing ever happened with that either. And as you well know, as you mentioned, TDR, which is the comp plan, never did a thing with it.
Right.
So, there's a lot of stuff that wasn't touched, that needs to be touched, and one way or the other. But I think that I will do for the next meeting, I will come up with some scenarios on carrots. And you guys tell me what you want, what you like and what you don't, I'll go from the common sense to the absurd and the sublime. And you always pick the one in the middle, that's what's called a presentation. And the one you want to put in the middle. And we'll chew on it, and I'll do some drawings for it. Because you gotta see this graphically and understand.
Yeah.
Because that's how you do your subdivision, so we're on a piece of paper with lines. So we'll play with it. I wish we had great land, because it would give us a lot more options, but we don't, we have those restrictions to deal with too. What I'll also try to do is map out, or at least find some resources to tell you where the good soils are both in terms of decent buildable soils, but also agricultural soils, and there aren't a lot. And important wildlife corridors, and you know where they are, there's a lot of stuff around Brimstone and down Brimstone Stream. A couple other areas there too. And of course, the Great Arundel Swamp, which is on no map, except for old maps, but I mean, that's down there.
Where?
Down here,
Off River Road.
off River Road. It's basically Kitty Bassett's, well, it's Chip Bassett's land, I guess Chip's land, but huge amount of land. And it's all gigantic swamp. And he's gonna wanna do something with it. Knowing full well what the constraints are, so. And then we've just had, we have R4 along, well, of course, R4 along in the eastern part, doesn't matter because it's on the wrong side of the tracks. We have R4 along Lombard Road. They have R4 on one side, Lombard Road and R2 on the other side.
Yeah.
There's no soil difference between the two.
Yeah, it's kind
Told
of-
you.
That's good.
Wasn't soils.
It wasn't.
No.
You know what it was?
I told you before, it was the I word. Idiot.
Yeah.
Not
I
that.
call it the M, the moron, you call it idiot, same thing. It makes no sense.
So it was one person standing up and saying, I don't want that?
No, I don't think it was one person. I think it was a flock of idiots.
It was,
Just one of those things.
I just don't understand that. Maybe looking at well, we gotta deal with R4 first,
Yes.
and then we'll take a look at Lombard Road and try to figure out.
I mean, if there's little things we need to tweak once we have the
I think
basic
Lombard Road might
picture.
be one of the tweaks.
But,
Mm,
you
I
know,
think so too.
how to solve this. I don't think that there is an elegant solution to this, because no matter what we do, somebody's gonna be unhappy. But if we can minimize the damage in all three of those categories that Tad mentioned before, so there's less residential development than we have been having, and there is more carrot available to the landowners to incentivize them to keep it as open space, and then that in part solves the open space, and you know, I'd almost like to get away from this term rural character, because it is so many things to so many people.
Yeah.
I think open space is a much more user-friendly term for our purposes, because it implies, at least to me, not only the visual, but the useful, open space, natural resources.
See, but open space to me, Dawn, reflects absolutely nothing on tax help or, because that was another reason why I wanted it too.
Well, yeah, because if you're not building homes.
Open characters, open space, sounds better to me than open
Character.
space.
But if you didn't want to
We'll
do that, we
do
shouldn't have
carrot.
gone to 1 acre lots,
Just character.
because all that did was make us bring more of them.
Right. Well, space.
I'm gonna make this purely economical.
Lost in space.
Zero-
It's got to play a
zero
role, especially when you're
tax-
talking 50% of
Zero
our
tax
land.
liability space.
Well, but remember that 50% of the land is also not using town resources.
Yep.
My land doesn't cost a ton of penny.
That 50% of the land that's truly open space isn't using any town resources, because there are no houses, and there are no kids in school, and there's nothing. You know,
Oh, fire department goes out there for a little while, and fires every once in a while, that's about it. It's good training.
and that's,
The only one
Hunting.
that's ever come down my area about any fire has been the foolish, not the game warden, but the forestry girl. While she was moving, she saw us burning.
oops.
The one time.
You
They
didn't
were,
have a
they were
permit?
training all day, they were down at Kate's Butter. And he had a little fire out back and she stopped. There was a, let's just say there was a little war in the front yard when she showed up.
Did you have any hot dogs for it ready? It's a cooking fire.
Put it to you this way,
Don't eat it.
somebody wasn't letting her on the property. Told her
Well,
she-
they're part of that
told
rural
her-
character.
That's
told her-
rural
yeah,
character,
told her
that
she
is.
Told her she could call state police. And
All right.
they would have to come with a search warrant too. So, yeah, it's, and it is rural. It's, I like living in the country.
Especially if you don't get caught.
It's the one and only
That's why
time I've
you have
ever done it
lots.
too. It's like, this is
Yeah,
just
there was always the way.
You know what the fire department said? They go,
That's why you have
why
buffers.
don't you just tell her to get off? So they said, why don't you just tell her to leave?
Rural character.
I will remind you, we are being recorded.
Yeah. But no one will know what.
Nobody. We got some.
Well, I guess they felt they should have been called. They should have been the ones.
The fire department?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Unfortunately, the fire department is actually the agent for the Forest Service. Forest Service can
They felt
do
that they
anything.
should have been the ones to be called and not somebody from not here.
So next meeting, which will be February 3rd,
I have some work to do.
we're gonna take a look at Dad's budget carrots
Hey,
and
What have I done?
continue beating our own heads against R4. Is there anything else we should be discussing besides that, or do you think we can go through ours?
I don't know, maybe I should stick over that night.
No. We like your contrarian view.
Well, if we can get as many.
No, I
people
think
as
that's gonna
possible.
be a
Okay, and we'll also probably get some feedback, hopefully from some of the landowners, and that,
We have to get something, because
Yeah.
we have to get some,
that way.
yeah.
all right, so we're
Because
gonna.
they're all gone to Florida, as it says. I mean, I'll go knock on Bert's door, I know he's home.
And it's cold.
Well,
The Labby's all grab Philip the next.
Well, yeah, we've got,
It's lucky.
between the Labbies and Bert and Pam Drew,
Right.
that's most of it except for the Keezers.
Right.
They have the other two big pieces,
Right.
you know, the little lots.
I think Pam's all in the,
She is, she's all in R1, but because of what she does, I would still like to give her the option of being R4.
Until
If the
she
surrounding-
finds out.
If the surrounding properties go in that direction, it would make sense.
Well, yeah, although if we can get her an animal husband all squared away in the R1, she'll be happy. Just wants to be able to raise her llamas and be able to sell sods.
But,
Carpenters,
sell
yeah,
I didn't
that's what
realize,
she wants to
didn't
do.
realize all this, war socks, but that's a whole different issue. But it would still make sense.
Well, actually, they wear neck ones, in case you haven't noticed.
Sorry, but this part of
A
Rundle
current-
is a city,
a
and this part of
current-
Rundle is rural.
A current agriculture, animal husbandry operation, there's no reason why if we're gonna carve out the pieces, we can't just put her in R4 and make life easy.
She might not want to be.
When she finds out that she can
Right,
sell
I
it,
agree
she
with you.
has to give up
That's
50% of it and has to
preference.
pay the lots. She may not want to go in that for.
All right.
All right, well,
We good?
we made it to 9 o'clock. We
But-
somehow managed to squeak 2
Barely.
hours.
I would
Like
love
to entertain a motion?
Oh, please, please.
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn for the evening.
Second.
Thank you very much,
Since
sir.
we've run out of items on the,
All those in favor of running to the hills? Thank you all for coming out on a cold night and
I'm getting cold.
participating. Yeah, no, it's freezing in here.
oh, they turned
We're
on
gonna
the heat.
save money.
Well, that's good.
Between this and the DOT.
I did, I got.
They want hundreds
Yes.
of fifty-nine
So,
funds.
thank you.
I know that, like, completely wrong. Wow, I missed a wood heat.
Yep. I didn't sign it.
Radiant floors and wood heat.
Well, I need 250 in order to develop. I only have like 257. They want an easement on 102 or 103 of it.
I don't know the topic. You want to do some volunteer work, someone?
I should be good, I've got
Cart, at least I think we are.
I better know.
They ran a itty bitty issue with
Exactly.
But I'll email you once I have more information.
Yeah, because Cole's working, the little one.
Good.